Stainby is a small Lincolnshire village covering 1,459 acres, 9 miles south of Grantham and 11 miles east of Melton Mowbray. Like most of the area, the land belongs to Buckminster Estates, and it's a 1937-38 farm tenancy contract between Buckminster Estates and Georgiana Exton we're going to look at. To ease confusion, some of the documents in this video use the name Georgina, which is incorrect. Her name was Georgiana, and if you're wondering like I was, an incorrectly spelt name doesn't void a contract you've signed. Georgiana and her husband John, known as Jack, took the tenancy on in 1913, 2 years after their 1911 marriage in nearby Souston. They ran the farm together until Jack's death due to diphtheria on November 25, 1916, aged 41. Despite Jack's death, Georgiana kept the farm tenancy, but she needed help, and her brother Tom recommended Mr. Darby, who turned out to be an excellent choice. For his farming knowledge and expertise, Mr. Darby was paid 30 shillings a week, with a rent-free cottage for he and his wife and free milk from the farm. Jack's death left Georgiana not only the farm to manage, but also 2 young daughters, Vera and Dora, and pregnant with a third, Joan. There was too much work for Mr. Darby to undertake on his own, so on leaving school, Georgiana's nephew Cecil came to live on the farm and help out. As he lived in, Cecil was paid 10 to 15 shillings a week. Cecil left in 1929, leaving Mr. Darby with various farm boys over the years and Georgiana's daughters as they grew older to assist him. Amongst the girls' tasks were churning butter, feeding the chickens and ducks and collecting their eggs, and every evening after school the cows would be taken from their pasture to eat the grass on the road verges, which protected the pasture somewhat. The 1937-38 contract was to be the last Georgiana signed, as Mr. Darby died in 1937, and with farming at that time yielding little profit for small operations, she relinquished the land. The contract stipulated Georgiana paid Buckminster Estates £40 rent for the period April 5, 1937 to April 6, 1938, with the balance met in 2 equal instalments of £20 on October 5th and April 5th.
The landlord agrees to let and the tenant agrees to take upon the terms and conditions hereinafter stated the messuage or farmhouse and farm with the outhouses, premises and lands thereto belonging situate in the parish of Stainby in the county of Lincolnshire and called the left blank farm particularly specified in the schedule hereto and containing 60 acres, 3 rods and 38 poles.
Let's see if we can shed some light on those measurements.
1 acre equals 4 rods, 4,840 square yards or 4,000 square metres. 1 rod equals quarter of an acre, 1,210 square yards or 1,011 square metres. 1 pole, 30.25 square yards or 25 square metres. A pole can also be called a perch. To simplify things even more, an acre is the size of a large football pitch.
The 60-odd acres consisted of 4 arable fields: Near Eyes, Hopper, Townsend Close and Warren's Close, 2 pastures, Cow Commons and Townsend Paddock, the house, surrounding land and paddock, an occupation road which bisected Townsend Paddock and Townsend Close. Repurposing any of the pasture land to arable without Buckminster Estates' consent carried the heavy price of £30 per acre per annum, 3/4 of the annual rent Georgiana paid for her 60 acres.
The further yearly rent of £30 for every acre of meadow or pasture land forming part of said farm, including land permanently laid down to pasture, which during the tenancy shall be broken up or converted into tillage without consent in writing of the landlord.
Having mentioned tillage, it's perhaps pertinent to say few small farms had tractors in the 1930s, with land preparation powered by horse and hand. A strong horse could plough roughly 1 acre a day, depending on the land's constitution, and with 48 arable acres that equates to nearly 7 weeks ploughing. However, rigid stipulations in the contract for the utilisation of the land meant there would never actually be 48 acres a year to plough.
Not to grow more than 2 white straw crops in succession upon any part of the arable land, to have in each and every year of tenancy 1/5 of the arable land in roots or bare fallow, and not less than 1/5 of the arable land properly sown with new seeds.
White straw crops are barley, oats and wheat etc., and they would be the most valuable crops to a farmer. The purpose of these stipulations were to keep the land in good condition and allow it to recover. Intensive growing can strip the land of nutrients needed by crops to succeed. The 1880 Ground Game Act granted the occupier rights to take ground game for their own purpose, but the landlord was also entitled to the same privileges. The definition of ground game in the Act is rabbits and hares. Wildfowl and fish on the land were the sole preserve of the landlord in this contract.
The game, rabbits, wildfowl and fish, which during the tenancy shall be upon the farm, and the exclusive rights of the sporting, are subject to the provisions of the Ground Game Act 1880, excepted from this letting and reserved unto the landlord and all persons authorised by him. All trees, saplings, underwood and plantations, and all mines, minerals and quarries in or upon the farm are also accepted and reserved unto the landlord.
A rich seam of ironstone ran through Stainby, and the tenancy agreement incorporated an 1894 Buckminster Estates contract granting all mining rights on the land to the Holwell Iron Company Limited. Holwell operated 20 quarries in the area between 1898 and the end of mining in 1972 under various guises, and during Georgiana's tenancy traded as Stanton, but there was no mining on the farm during her residency. The farmhouse consisted of 6 downstairs rooms with entrance hall and 6 upstairs rooms. By 1938 Georgiana's first daughter Vera had married Jeff, and this plan shows the living arrangements. Jeff and Vera had their own living room, a bedroom for themselves and one for their first daughter Jill. They had also converted the scullery into a kitchen, allowing them to live somewhat separate from the rest of the family. Upstairs was a bacon chamber, as the custom of the times was for smallholders to keep and slaughter a pig every year. The bacon chamber used for hanging the meat, but Georgiana utilised the chamber for general storage. There was also one bedroom with a damaged floor, around which the younger family members gingerly navigated for fear of falling through. The house didn't possess running water or electricity. Water was supplied from a pump outside the back door, and hot water obtained from a fire-heated boiler. The 1937-38 contract set out terms for the house maintenance, which didn't seem to include repairing the damaged bedroom floor.
Keep throughout the tenancy all the buildings and outbuildings inside and out, and all the fences, walls, gates, stiles, roads, pumps, ditches, drains, watercourses and bridges of or belonging to the farm in good and tenantable repair and condition, and so leave the same at the end of the tenancy, and to cut and layer a proper proportion of the fences each year of the tenancy. The landlord finding materials for the buildings except glass. To paint once in every 3 years during the continuance of the tenancy all the outside wood and ironwork of the farmhouse and outbuildings which have been painted heretofore, and to paint once in every 7 years during such continuance the inside wood and ironwork of the said house and outbuildings, each such painting outside or inside to be done with 2 paints of oil paint of the best quality and in a workmanlike manner. The landlord finding paint for outside work, the tenant to cart materials at his own cost, not exceeding 10 miles.
As mentioned previously, the death of Mr. Darby early in this contract's duration brought an end to Georgiana's farming. She employed another to replace Mr. Darby, but it was not a successful engagement. and after 25 years, 22 years of which she'd been widowed, the land was relinquished at this agreement's expiration. March the 16th, 1938 was set as the date to auction the livestock and farming implements. Georgiana kept a record of the sale, which totalled £258.14. And according to thisismoney.co.uk's historic inflation calculator, equates to £16,165.29 as of September 2017. To conclude the story, Georgiana wrote to Buckminster Estate saying she wished to relinquish the land but stay in the farmhouse. An agreement was made to rent the house for £16 per year, and her land was amalgamated with a nearby Westlands farm. After a short spell as a nurse, Georgiana took on the post office at the farmhouse, and on her retirement in 1965 received this certificate of thanks from the General Post Office for 26 years' work. Water and electricity finally arrived at the farmhouse and the damaged bedroom floor repaired in the 1950s, not long after Georgiana's third child Joan married and her husband Leonard moved in with the family. Huge thanks to Nev and Chris for the tenancy contract, photos, locating the Stainby properties, answering my stream of questions, and not looking crestfallen every time they answered the door to find me standing there, but instead spoiling me with top quality Colson Bassett Stilton cheese. Thank you.